I recently bought a Nintendo Switch, and one of the many games I bought for it is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Yeah, it's kind of a tradition at this point when getting a Nintendo console to buy the corresponding Smash game with it. I also recently bought a refurbished GameCube. I don't even need to tell you what game I bought with that. Super Smash Bros. Is one of Nintendo's most iconic and obsessed-over franchises, currently going on over 24 years. I was first introduced to the concept around 13 or so years ago with an online fan flash game called Super Smash Flash. Essentially, it was a fan's reimagining of Super Smash Bros. Melee with very limited character sprites and very limited movesets, but the character lineup was massive with the usual contestants such as Mario and Luigi, Link, Zelda, who turned into Sheik on the fly, Fox, Kirby, who turned into Meta Knight on the fly, Captain Falcon, Samus, Pikachu, and Jigglypuff. Oddly enough, there was no Donkey Kong, Ness, Yoshi, Bowser, or Ganondorf, but we did have some non-Nintendo characters such as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, Mega Man, Zero, Cloud, Chrono, Inuyasha, even Mr. Incredible, and a few fan-made Sonic recolors, for better or for worse. Keep in mind that this game was made sometime in the early 2000s before Brawl, so Nintendo hadn't started the trend of adding outside characters yet. Also, the announcer was this sweet little girl whose voice sounded like milk and honey to the ears.
This game's winner is Link.
I did some checking and I found out that she's actually doing legit voice acting nowadays. I hope life's good to her. Okay, the game really wasn't much in the grand scheme of things, but it did get me familiar with Smash as a concept. But more importantly, it introduced me to the likes of Link, Mega Man, Kirby, and Samus. Remember, I wasn't a Nintendo user growing up. I was Team PlayStation, baby. Also, I went through a period in my life to my mid to late teens where I didn't really follow or have any interest in video games. I was probably better off during that time, not gonna lie. And 2009 was really where I began my reintegration to the video game world, and this fan game served as a way to get me familiar with other franchises, mostly from Nintendo. And when I got tired of it, I began to seek out information regarding the real franchise. This led me to gameplay footage on YouTube, and eventually playing the games myself, whether by emulation or physical copies, except for Smash 4, either version of which I have yet to play.
Greetings people, 'tis I, 480 Volts, and today we are talking about the first game in the Smash series, Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64. I will from here on refer to this game as Smash 64, just for the sake of clarity.
The idea for Smash started in the collective minds of two young men from HAL Laboratories named Satoru Iwata and Masahiro Sakurai. Sakurai had long since made a name for himself, a name that longtime Nintendo fans knew. See this little pink puffball? Sakurai did that. I should really look at the Kirby series sometime. It hasn't been around as long as, say, Mario, Link, or even Samus, but it wasted no time at all in rising to the top tier of Nintendo franchises. Sakurai is a name that all Nintendo fans know, respect, and occasionally fear. Funny enough, one of the mock-up prototype ideas for Smash was called Dragon King, the fighting game. Hey, that's a cool name, not gonna lie. Seriously, you can put the word dragon into anything and it sounds cooler.
Final Dragon Fantasy, Sonic the Dragon Hedgehog, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen's Sweet Dragon 16.
You get the idea. Sadly though, the coolness ends with the game, as the gameplay footage floating around on YouTube doesn't look like much and has the player take control of these Power Ranger looking dudes. I mean, it's not bad by any means, but it's nothing special either. Keep in mind, fighting games are really becoming quite a popular genre thanks to the likes of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, which I myself have never really played much of. Like I said earlier, Team PlayStation, which means I got my fighting kicks from the Tekken games. Heck, even Squaresoft made a fighting game called Tobal No. 1, which I'm guessing only 2 or 3 of you have ever even heard about. The point is, players already had a number of fighting games to choose from, so if Sakurai wanted anyone to play this game, he had to find a way to stand out in a genre that was otherwise becoming oversaturated. That's when the idea to use Nintendo characters and Nintendo stages came up. Apparently it took some convincing for the higher-ups at Nintendo, but they ultimately agreed.
I mean, it's not like Sakurai really had to prove himself. Like I said, the Kirby series was doing fantastic at this point, so they already knew what he was capable of doing.
Anyway, the game was released in 1999, about 3.5 years into the N64's life cycle. When I first started getting into the dark world of emulation, this was the only Smash title I could properly enjoy. Now I have the ability to play the rest of the entries, but for the longest time this was all I had, with YouTube videos of the other games teasing me and reminding me that I didn't have them.
But the question is, does this game hold up after almost 25 years of its initial release? Well, let's find out.
Now, I'm sure that everybody in the entire multiverse has a decent comprehension about what Smash is, but for the two of you who've never played any of the games, here's how it works. Before I talk about the characters and stages and stuff, let's talk about the core gameplay. Smash is unique from most fighting games of its time for a few reasons. 1. Our characters don't have health bars. In most fighting games, each character has a health bar that decreases as they take damage. Hit and kick your opponents like mad to decrease their health down to empty and you win. In Smash, each character has a percentage bar. And since I already know what you're thinking, no, the bar does not start at 100 and decrease each time you get hit. Rather, it increases. And no, you don't get KO'd when your percentage meter hits 100. So what's the deal? Your end goal is not so much to damage your opponents so much they lay down and croak, but rather to knock them off of the arena. Most battle arenas are set over bottomless pits, and if you fall off, you die. So why the percentage meter? Well, initially your attacks won't really knock them too far back, but as the percentage meter builds up, they get knocked further and further back from punches and kicks. And even here, it's not so much a question of knocking them back, but as the percentage meter gets high, punches and kicks will start setting the characters flying. If you hit them hard enough while their percentage is high enough, you can knock them up so high in the sky that they'll break through the stage barriers and be KO'd. So your strategy should be to dish out as much damage in a relatively short time until their percentage meter is high enough, say 120 or 130, then hit them with a good hard smack and knock them into the heavens. Another thing that's different from the other fighting games, you have a very limited moveset. Again, I don't know much about Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, but I know in Tekken it's all about combos. And I'm not even talking about the 9 or 10 move combos that advanced players can unleash on you before you even get so much as a move. I'm talking about the simple 2 or 3 button combos that make your character do a powerful spin kick move or something like that. Can't do that in Smash. Every character has a standard attack with the A button, a special attack with the B button, a grab and a throw, a jump, a double jump, and a shield. That's it. This is because Sakurai knew how frustrating it can be when you play against another opponent and before you can even blink, they unleash a 12-move combo mopping the floor up with you as you simply put the controller down and watch. Sakurai wanted Smash to be a game that anybody could pick up and play. Now that is not to say that characters only have 2 ways of attacking. Oh no, quite the contrary. You can switch up your attacks by combining these moves with the analog stick. Control stick up followed by A gives you a sort of jump kick. Control stick down with B gives you some sort of special ground move. If you tilt the analog stick in a direction and press the A button at the same time, you can perform a smash attack, just a more powerful attack. Time it just right and BAM! Tilt the analog stick left or right with a shield lets you dodge attacks. The moveset may be simplistic in nature, but there's a lot you can do with it. If you manage to touch the edge of a platform whilst falling, you can grab onto it and pull yourself up. With most characters, and by that I mean everyone but Yoshi, up B gives you a special jump which in some cases serves as an aerial attack, and some cases not. However, it can be used after the jump and double jump, effectively giving you a triple jump. All this you can use to try and recover from falling off the platform. Just don't use it too quickly. Once you do the up B move, your character can do nothing but fall until their feet touch the ground. This makes for an effective strategy when your opponent attempts to double and triple jump back onto the platform. If you can manage to bop them one more good hit before they land, they can't do anything but fall. All that being said, the controls, while no doubt being more than sufficient for its time, have not aged well at all. Everyone just feels really stiff and clunky, and if you spend a lot of time on literally any other Smash title, then this one is going to feel rough. Like, I played it for months and got used to it, enjoyed it, and dominated the computer players, but then I started playing some of the later games, and although the controls for those games took some time for me to get used to, I eventually did and got pretty good with it. Not only that, but no 2 Smash titles are the same. Like, Melee is ridiculously fast, and Brawl is ridiculously slow, and Ultimate is somewhere in that just right zone, yet I never have trouble switching gears for these games. And then I go back to this one to record the footage, and I'm just like, wow, was it always this clunky? I suppose part of the problem is I'm playing on an emulator as I don't own an N64 and Nintendo has yet to put this game on their expansion service, and thus I'm having to use one of my many controllers, in this case my trusty PS4 controller, to mimic the N64 controller. Anybody who's ever even seen a picture of an N64 controller knows the problems I'm talking about. There never was a controller quite like this one, at least that's what we hope. I mean, okay, the C stick can be mapped to the left stick, the A button can be mapped to X, B to square or circle, whichever you prefer, L1 and R1 can be L and R, and just for grins I made L2Z, and there you go, I even got some extra buttons and a whole nother stick left over. Oh wait, the C buttons, what am I supposed to do with those? I struggled with this in Ocarina of Time, and I think I had to change it for this game because every game uses these things differently. For this game I ended up putting the C buttons on the D-pad, which isn't necessarily ideal, but it works. And to those of you thinking, but 480, what do you do when you actually need to use the D-pad? Well, person who has never played an N64 title in their life, no one ever used that thing. It was the most useless feature of the controller. The N64 was all about that hot smoking new control stick. Now, to be fair, this was innovative at the time, and Sony would later go on to capitalize on this idea with dual analog sticks, and for nearly 2 decades, every controller for every console ever would feature this. Well, most every console. But the first draft was certainly unconventional. Ah, Nintendo, when they make good controllers, they make really good controllers. And when they make weird controllers, they make really weird controllers. Probably the biggest thing that set Smash apart from its competitors was the aforementioned fact that these aren't just random Power Ranger looking dudes or martial arts champions. These are Nintendo characters from different Nintendo franchises. By default, your character select screen has Mario, Donkey Kong, Link, Fox, Kirby, Samus, Yoshi, and Pikachu, but if you complete certain requirements, you unlock other characters as well, although you do need to defeat them in battle first. For unlockables, we have Jigglypuff, Ness, Captain Falcon, and Luigi. You know what, let me just be transparent for a minute. When I first saw Jigglypuff in Super Smash Flash, I thought he was hailing from the world of Kirby. I mean, he sure looks like him, little pink puffball who can inflate himself and float around. To be honest, everything I know about Pokemon I know from Smash. I remember it being this massive thing when I was a kid in the 90s, but I myself never really got into it. I gotta say, it's so cool to see all these different Nintendo characters coming together and, well, beating the crap out of each other. Now Luigi can finally pound his big bro Mario for always hogging the spotlight. Or DK can pound Mario for his animal cruelty in the OG Donkey Kong game. Or Kirby and Jigglypuff can battle each other to see who's the most powerful ball of cotton candy. Pick anybody you want, the possibilities are endless. I gotta say, putting Ness into this game was kind of a random choice. I mean, on one hand it makes sense, Earthbound, or Mother as it's called in Japan, was made by HAL, so there you go, but to date there have only been 3 Mother games and Ness was only in one of them. Now I realize that Mother 3 hadn't even been made yet, and that the first Mother game wouldn't even be available outside of Japan until nearly 25 years after the Famicom release, so Ness was most likely the first kid to pop into your mind when someone mentioned Earthbound. Also, you could argue that Nintendo from Mother 1 is just an earlier version of Ness, but when you look at Smash as a franchise, you see that Ness is a veteran staple appearing in every single game, but he was a one-off character in his own franchise and it wasn't even on the N64. I should really look at the Mother games at some point. And Samus, poor Samus! This was her only time she ever appeared on this console. You could make an argument about Luigi being absent from Mario 64 or Donkey Kong not having a featured N64 title until almost a year after this game's release, but both had guest appearances on the likes of Mario Kart and Mario Party. This game was the only bit of N64 love Samus got. It's okay, girl, the next line of consoles, both home and handheld, will treat you right. Even though everyone has the same moveset on a technical level, it's different aesthetically for each character and reflects the moves that they've had in their own incarnations. For instance, Mario's still B-Attack is him throwing his fireballs, a callback to his 2D adventures, while his standard punch and sweep kick look like they've been ripped right out of Super Mario 64. Link wields a sword and you can throw bombs in his boomerang around. Samus can drop morph ball bombs and her up B move is the screw attack. Kirby can inflate himself to float around for a limited amount of time, giving him greater chances of recovery. His down B is him turning into a rock for a hard-hitting ground pound, and his still B lets him inhale other opponents, giving him access to their still B moves. And Yoshi can suck in enemies with his tongue, and his double jump is his signature flutter jump. When designing different moves, Sakurai really wanted it to feel natural for each character, like this is something they would do in this situation. Like it makes sense for Mario to throw fireballs or for Ness to use his PSI abilities. This is partly because Sakurai knew how he'd feel as a creator if he saw Kirby featured in some other game, doing things that he otherwise wouldn't be able to do. Sakurai really wanted to do justice to the guys who conceptualized these characters. I'd say he succeeded for the most part. The only 2 awkward characters would be Fox and Captain Falcon. These guys had always been confined to vehicles in their respective games, so now the devs had to imagine what they might act like in physical combat, and what do you know? They're some of the best characters to play as in the entire franchise. Kirby's pretty good too. I'm sure Sakurai was not biased in any way. Mario, Ness, and Pikachu feel really well balanced to me, not too powerful but not too weak. Samus takes a bit getting used to for me, but she's okay I guess. Donkey Kong, for all of his strength, is pretty clunky. He's just a bit too stiff and slow for my taste. Yoshi would be awesome, flutter jump giving him a great aerial recovery, ground pound is devastating. Yeah, but his up B move is him throwing an egg. This means if you find yourself falling and the jump flutter combo isn't enough to get you back on solid ground, guess what? You're screwed. Sword characters are no strangers to fighting games, and they're usually pretty fun to play as. That said, I'm not the hugest fan of Link. He's okay, but I don't know, there's just something about him. I also don't like that his up B move doesn't give him much hang time, so while it certainly is better than Yoshi, it's not the most reliable. Luigi is just a weaker, clunkier Mario, however his up B is awesome when you hit an opponent just right. Jigglypuff is fine, all things considered, just don't ever touch his down B. His lazy butt goes right to sleep for a good few seconds, leaving him extremely vulnerable. Oh, wait, wasn't that an ability from Kirby's Adventure? That game came out in 93, Jiggly wasn't a thing until 96. I'm beginning to think the collective minds behind Pokemon ripped off Sakurai's work. Another thing that's different are the stages themselves. Yeah, these aren't just generic fighting dojos, these are areas ripped right out of different Nintendo franchises, complete with their own signature set pieces. You got Peach's Castle for the Mario Bros, Congo Jungle for Donkey Kong, Hyrule Castle for Link, Planet Zebes for Samus, Sector Z for Fox, Yoshi's Island for Yoshi, Dreamland for Kirby, and Saffron City for the Pokemon. And the characters aren't bound to the stages stages either unless you're playing one-player mode, which I'll talk about later. In Versus mode, you select your characters, then you select your stage. And these stages are unlike your typical fighting dojos, which are usually a confined room with a flat surface. The only stage like that is the final stage where you fight the final boss, and that's only in one-player mode. Most of the stages have smaller platforms above the main floor. Some, like Saffron City, are broken up by pitfalls, and some, like Sector Z, have an uneven surface. It makes sense, this is Nintendo, and what is Nintendo most noted for?
Adventure titles.
Well, yeah, but what else?
Sports.
Oh sure, but besides that.
Racing.
I mean, definitely, but what's something else? Platforming, baby! Smash did something truly unique, and that was adding platforming elements into a fighting game. Stages also have stage hazards that you need to watch out for, like in the case of Sector Z, the floor of which is the outer deck of the Great Fox. You got R-Wings that will occasionally fly by and fire at the field, giving you one more thing to watch out for, or Hyrule Castle occasionally spawns this tornado that can suck you up and spit you out. I'm gonna be honest, I don't much care for a lot of these stages. I prefer a pretty even and balanced playing field. Peach's Castle is really annoying with the lower floor constantly moving, and these obnoxious bumpers that really make it hard to knock your opponents into oblivion. Stages like Congo Jungle and Yoshi's Island are too small and cramped for my taste. Dreamland would be okay if it wasn't for the fact that you got Wispy Woods over here blowing you all over the field. That sounded really not right. Planet Zebus and Saffron City are my least favorites. Saffron City has barely any space big enough to stand on, and this storage room right here can spawn different Pokemon, most of which are pretty devastating, so you really don't want to stand too close to that. And Planet Zebus would be a solid stage, except that there's a sea of lava below the floor, and if you knock a character off, instead of falling to their doom, they'll just get damaged from it and usually bounce back up to the floor. Still, if their percentage is high enough, then chances are they'll probably just get rocketed to the sky. But then the lava starts rising, and the only safe ground for several seconds are the tippy-top-most platforms, and yeah, I don't like this place. The only one I enjoy is Sector Z. The Great Fox is big, giving you plenty of room to run around on. You can also unlock a secret stage, Mushroom Kingdom. It's alright, although I think it's funny that Captain Falcon and Ness have no stages to call their own and have to share stages with Samus and Kirby respectively, and Mario's over here rocking 2 stages, not to mention there's 2 Mario characters in this game, 3 if you count Yoshi. I mean, technically there's 2 Pokemon, but seriously dude, quit hogging the spotlight. It's funny, nowadays Smash games are this huge phenomenon, and one of the many things people get hyped for is what kind of stages are going to be used, with each franchise getting several. In this title, you get 9 stages. That's it. Another unique thing is items. At any given point in a match, a random item can spawn to be picked up by a player. There are a variety of items, and most of them come from different Nintendo franchises. You got the Fire Flower from Mario games, which lets you unleash a stream of fire on your opponents, the Bob-Ombs, also from Mario games, which you can hurl at your opponents for devastating results, just don't stand too close to your target when you throw it. Also, don't hold this sucker for too long, lest it blows up in your face. And if you can't pick it up within the first few seconds of its appearance, get the heck away from it, because when that thing comes to life and starts walking around, you really don't want to be anywhere near it. You've also got the Starman from the Mario series, giving you temporary invincibility. Boy, you never see the opponents showcase their dancing skills until you grab this thing as they scramble to stay out of your reach. You've also got red and green Koopa shells, which you can slide across the floor to hit opponents. In keeping with Mario tradition, green shells will slide off of the floor while red shells will bounce back. You got the Maximum Tomato from the Kirby series, which lowers your percentage a good bit, and the Heart, which we can go ahead and chalk up as a Zelda item, which lowers your percentage by an even gooder bit. The Pokeball and Leash is one of many different Pokemon, some really useful, and some really not. And the Hammer from the OG Donkey Kong, which is a weapon of mass destruction. There's also some Smash original items like the Motion Sensor Bomb, which is just a landmine, the Ray Gun, with which you can make your opponents cry as you relentlessly snipe them, the Fan, which you can bop your opponents with, doesn't do a lot of damage, but you can smack them around rapidly, and the Beam Sword, it's not a lightsaber guys, really, but it is awesome. And last but not least, the Home Run Bat. It's a baseball bat. Anyway, you can smack your opponents around with this thing for okay damage, but let me tell you what happens when you use a smash attack with it. Your character takes a good long swing and BAM! Sure, it gives your opponents more than enough time to dodge, but if you can time it just right and make it connect... Oh man, it's so tasty. And perhaps the last unique thing about Smash is its multiplayer options. Now, fighting games have been known for their multiplayer ability since the very beginning. Everyone knows that if you don't feel like fighting a mindless AI, you can hand one of your friends a second controller and duke it out to see who's the ultimate, but Smash took this to a whole new level with the N64's 4 controller input, allowing up to 4 players to duke it out on screen. Now, if you're like me, you can pick up to 3 AI players, but if you're a real person who had real friends, you could invite them over to your house, eat some pizza, insult their moms, and the next thing you know, all 4 of you guys are locked in an epic battle to prove who's the best smasher in the universe. Well, in your friend circle at least. And with the option for team battles, you've certainly got a fair amount of choices here. You can go 1-on-1, 2 against 1, 2 against 2, 3 against 1, or have a 3 or 4 person free-for-all where everyone is fair game.
Now, I have heard time and time again that the most enjoyment from Smash comes from the multiplayer experience. I don't doubt that, I just can't verify that because I don't have anybody to play with, because I don't really have any friends, and I just you know, I can't really, I can't get friends to play with me, and it's hard because I can't do that. But what do you care? Y'all have friends, so go to town! Or just play online, because that's what people do nowadays, I guess.
Now, Smash has never been one to ignore the lone player who sits by himself at lunch, or worse, was homeschooled. Like me. And thus, there is an entire mode in this game dedicated to the single-player experience. It's called one-player mode. You pick a character of your choice, and then the game sets you out on a path through certain stages with certain enemies. First, a battle with Link at Hyrule Castle. Pretty easy. Then it's off to Yoshi's Island to fight 18 Yoshis. 18? Seriously? Now, don't panic. Not only do you fight 3 of them at a time, they're also incredibly easy. Seriously, they can barely be bothered to touch you, and if you so much as sneeze, they go flying off the screen. Then you take on Fox at Sector Z. Then you play a special minigame called Break the Targets, where your goal is to break all of the targets without wiping out. You can also select these as bonus minigames outside of this mode. The layouts of these modes change depending on your character. Each one is tailor-made to make use of your character's specific moveset. Then you and a random AI team up against the Mario Bros at Peach's Castle. Then it's off to Saffron City to give Pikachu the what for. Then you go to Congo Jungle, where you and 2 other random AIs try to bring a giant Donkey Kong down to size. Then another bonus minigame where your goal is to touch all of the special platforms without wiping out. Again, these change depending on who you play as, and you can play these independently if you so choose. Then you arrive at Dreamland, where you need to take out 8 Kirbys 2 at a time. Wait, only 8 and 2 at a time? Is the game getting easier? No, it's actually getting harder. These Kirbys are much more aggressive than the Yoshis, and they don't go down quite as easily. Then you smack Samus around at Planet Zebes. Then you go toe-to-toe with Metal Mario. It's basically Mario in his metal cap form from Super Mario 64. What this means is that he hits hard, can take a lot of punishment, and doesn't get knocked back so easily. However, he drops like a freaking rock, so just wail on him until his percentage is high enough, then throw him over the edge. Then you have a time race to the finish. Captain Falcon and Fox are the 2 fastest characters in the game, but speed is not the end-all be-all factor here. There are obstacles to dodge and landmines to avoid, and too much speed can sometimes be a detriment here. Also, you can't do this minigame outside of this mode. Alright then. After that, you have to defeat 30 of these fighting polygons, 3 at a time, and they're tougher than the Kirby team. Also, kinda funny how they're called fighting polygons when that's literally what every character in this N64 title is, yourself included. And finally, after all of that, you face off against the final boss, the Master Hand. Yeah, it's literally just a giant hand. Actually, the opening and ending cutscenes imply that it's just a child's hand playing with his toys, and you know what? I can get down with that idea. I was a little kid once, and I had all sorts of action figures and Lego people, and because I was a boy, I used to play fighting games with them. And when I ran out of characters, I just used my own hand as if it were some sort of 5-legged creature. I was a kid, what do you want from me? Master Hand is the only one who actually has an HP meter, so all you have to do is just wail on him and bring it down. Just watch out for his moves. All in all, one-player mode is alright, but there's only so much fun I can get from it. The graphics are what you'd expect from an N64 title. Everything is very polygonal, but also very bright and colorful. The backgrounds and character models really pop. Most of the character models are just reused from their previous N64 appearances. Well, the ones who actually had N64 appearances. Like the stages and characters, another really big thing in modern Smash culture that gets a lot of hype is the music. Smash games are known for featuring a vast playlist consisting mostly of tunes that represent the many Nintendo franchises featured. Some are ripped right out of the original games, while the majority of them are remixes or rearrangements, or in some cases medleys. It's always exciting when a new Smash game is being developed and people are wondering and speculating what characters are going to appear, what stages they are, and what sweet new remixes we're going to hear. In this first game, not so much. Remember, Sakurai and Hao had absolutely no intention of making Smash anything more than a one-game deal at the time, and they really didn't expect it to be terribly successful, so the team didn't necessarily go all out in terms of music, nor did they have any real reason to. Since this was a game that featured pre-existing characters on pre-existing games on what was at the time the latest and greatest Nintendo system, the choice for musical direction seemed pretty simple and obvious. Each of these characters' signature themes remixed and rearranged for the N64's hardware. Officially, Hirokazu Ando is credited as the composer, but I think that's slightly inaccurate since these were pre-existing tunes, technically having been composed by other artists, most notably Koji Kondo. Anyway, most of them are just the same tunes you know and love, done in the style of the N64, if you will. The classic Mario overworld theme has been reworked for Peach's Castle. It definitely has more life than the original, and the original 8-bit version plays from Mushroom Kingdom. Hyrule Castle gets an N64 orchestral attempt of the classic Zelda overworld theme. Even though it sounds plastic and canned, I actually really like it. It has has a nice marching feel that I don't think other arrangements of this theme try to capture. I don't know much about Pokemon, but I think Saffron City music comes from Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. And the main theme of Star Fox 64 plays for Sector Z. Like Hyrule Castle, these two themes are more N64 orchestral attempts. You would think that Fox's music would sound identical to Star Fox 64, but there's actually some subtle differences between them. Dreamland's theme comes from, of all things, the gourmet race from Kirby Superstar. Kind of a random choice. I mean, I get that Superstar was widely considered one of the greatest Kirby games out there, but I'm surprised it wasn't something like Green Greens. Anyway, this version doesn't sound a whole lot different than the original SNES version. Jungle Hijinks for Congo Jungle actually sounds worse in my opinion compared to the original Donkey Kong Country. Like, it's not bad by any means, but I don't know, there's just something special about the SNES version that this one lacks. I should really look at the Donkey Kong Country series at some point, along with Donkey Kong 64. Yoshi's Island is the only one that gets a proper medley featuring 2 tracks from Yoshi's story. It's actually kind of a bop. Planet Zeb's music is my favorite, a really sweet remix of the OG Brainstar theme. Unlike other tracks, it's different enough for me to consider an actual remix. Oddly enough, I consider it my favorite version of the Brainstar theme, although Melee's version is pretty close. And believe it or don't, the music that plays on the character select screen is from Kirby's Adventure. And then we do have some original tunes, such as the opening cutscene, which sounds awfully scatterbrained for my taste, the menu music, which is surprisingly quiet and ambient compared to menu music from other Smash titles, Break the Targets, Board the Platforms, and Race to the Finish share a common theme, kinda catchy. Metal Mario's theme is an absolute banger, Fighting Polygons is a bop, and Master Hand's theme, while certainly lively, is a bit lackluster considering it technically is the final boss. And the credits theme is a happy little ditty that might as well be considered the main theme of Smash, as it's appeared in some form or other in every subsequent Smash title. All in all, the music is alright. So at the end of the day, is Smash worth your time? Well, as a series, sure. You may not be ready to commit to hardcore fanship as some of the freakishly obsessive people have, but you can certainly get down with it. I think Sakurai more than accomplished his goal of creating a fighting genre, and Smash has indeed become its own genre at this point, that anybody could get into. But do I recommend this particular game to you? No. And that's a pretty emphatic no at that. This game was a milestone breaker during its time, but as it stands now, it's simply outshined by its successors. This game walked so those games could run, and run they have. Now don't get me wrong, there's still loads of fun to be had with this game, and back when I couldn't play any of the others, I spent a lot of time on this one. But if you can play literally any other Smash game, then there's simply no other reason to go back to this one unless you're curious to see how it all started. For me, the biggest hang-up is the controls. They're just not pleasant to me anymore, and quite frankly, the other games just have more content and options. Because of this, if you've already played any other Smash title, I don't think you'll enjoy this one too much. Now, if you've never played a single Smash game in your life, you can start with this one. Just know that a renewed N64 copy goes for about $90. That's certainly less than, say, Melee, but I still think it's a bit much. If Nintendo ever bothers to put this on their expansion service, then sure, go for it, but only if you've already subscribed to the service. Basically, this one is not worth a lot of your money in my opinion, unless you're a hardcore retro gamers collector or something like that.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, please let me know in the comments, and please check out some of my other reviews as well. Also, I stream every night on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 o'clock Central Time on YouTube and Twitch. If any of this interests you, please consider checking out my channel and subscribing. Also, don't forget to check out my music on Spotify. In the meantime, have a fantastic rest of your day. Pieces.